In 2016, my mom passed, April 22nd, 2016. And it was a day when my life changed forever.
I'm toxic for no reason. I sit and I drown.
You should try grounded.
And
You ever get
time
that
seems
before?
to fly, no fight in a fight. The demons that surround me
A
now.
lot of times we get lost in our head.
I'm
And let me
sad
tell
for
you
no
this.
reason.
Ruminating thoughts
My
hurt
heart made
like
of
hell.
stone. The bones they are weak, my tears they are scary, and darkness consumes me now. I'm too far gone to reconcile my haunted past.
It's not
I
meditation.
live with this weight now.
It's grounding. You don't even gotta close your eyes.
With this weight now, I'm too far gone to turn back now. I'll just fight this till light comes around. I'm too far gone, far gone.
How else would you explain the rain?
These people around me know nothing about me. I could leave them in a spell, forget
I got so many
everything
women
they
problems.
know.
My X chromosome.
I tried to stay happy, but stuff keeps on happening.
I'm an only child, and so my father had passed in 1999, so it was just me and my mom from 1999 until 2016. And, you know, in my adult years, we became, you know, our relationship went from mother-daughter to mother-adult child, but in a different light. So she was my confidant. I talked to her about any and everything. If I wanted to get advice on something, she was there to give it, whether I wanted it or not. You know, we had our disagreements because, you know, I guess she's considered a baby boomer, and I'm Gen X. So we had different views on things. Like, she had a more traditional approach, and I've always been the kind of person where I'm like, I don't conform. I don't do what everyone else is doing. I'm not trying to be like everybody else. I want to be myself. I want to be my true authentic self, whatever that may be. You know, whether you think it's, you know, I'm a weirdo or quirky or what have you. You know, those are some names I've been called, but, you know, I'm like, I don't care, because I dare to be different. You know, I like that. I thrive in that. So, you know, we had our differences, but I also respected her opinion, because I knew that whenever she said something, it was spot on. And, I valued that. So when she got sick, you know, we had our bouts back and forth in the hospital. She would stay, you know, 2 weeks at a time, 4 weeks, things like that. And every time I was like, oh my goodness, is this going to be it? You know, because the doctors, every time they would always say, it's not looking good. But you know what? I come from a Christian family. You know, I have pastors and ministers in my family, and we all know the power of prayer. So I was like, you know, even though the doctors are saying this, I'm like, God, I trust you, and I know you have the final say. So, you know, whatever your will is, let it be done. So, you know, she would come out. She was a fighter too. So she would come out of the hospital, you know, a little better. But then because of her disease, you know, it would be like a roller coaster. She would have good moments and bad moments. So 2016, when it was the last hospital visit, you know, she was there. She kept saying how she wanted to go home. She wanted to go home. And I'm thinking, she's talking about, you know, her home in DC. And I was like, well, Mommy, you know, you got to get better, because we have to travel again, and we have to do this, because that's what we used to do. And she's like, I'm going home. Well, you know, make a long story short, you know, she didn't. That was her last visit in the hospital, and that's when she, you know, passed away. And I was there. And I tell you, I never watched someone die until her. And, you know, sitting there in the hospital room, holding her hand and just feeling the life leaving her. It took something out of me, because, you know, I'm holding her hand, it was warm, then all of a sudden it was cold, and I'm like, I'm looking over at her, and I'm looking at the monitors, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's transitioning. So when she passed, when the doctors legally declared her, you know, deceased, I sat there and I was like, you know, Lord, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just sitting here, and I'm by myself. You know, my girls were at home. I was in the hospital with her, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I sat there, and the nurse, she was like, take your time. But I could tell she was basically saying, take your time, but not too much time, because, they like, we got to keep it moving. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm just looking at her like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so she was like, well, have you thought about funeral homes? And I looked at her, I'm like, my mother just died. We didn't plan this. Like, we didn't plan that this was going to be her last visit, because for years, like 3 years, she would go in the hospital, she recover, she come out, go in. So I'm thinking it was one of those cycles. So I was not prepared for the end. So I was like, I said, I need some time. I don't know what to do. So it was, that whole period was like a dream. You know how you have a dream and it's not it's a bad dream and you're just waiting to wake up. That's how I felt. But the whole time I'm going through the motions. I'm talking to people. I really don't know what I said to them. I was like, well, I know I have to call, her brothers and sisters. So I called them, and then I had my cousin do some calling too, because at some point I called her up. I was like, I'm sorry, cousin. I need you to be my spokesperson, because I can't talk anymore. Everybody was calling, asking me this and that. And I'm like, I don't know, y'all, please, can you please talk to them? Because like my world is different now and I don't know what to do. So, we go through the motions, we're planning stuff. My aunts, they chip in, they give me some guidance on what to do and everything like that. But the whole time I'm like, I don't have any parents. I'm by myself. I got these kids to take care of, and I'm by myself. I don't know what to do. Really, I don't. And so, I had family members to come in, help me get through it. So I got through the funeral fine. That was still a blur too, because I'm like, my mother's not here. That body right there, that's not her. She's gone. And I'm like, okay. So we get through it, and I take a week off from work, and then I go back, and my coworkers are like, why are you so back? Why are you back so soon? And I'm like, what else am I going to do? I'm like, if I sit home, I'm just going to be sad and cry. So if I just distract myself with work, then I'll be fine, right? So I did that. After she passed, I took a week off. I didn't even get any grief counseling. That's how strong I was trying to be. And, and for the most part, as long as I submerged myself into work, I was distracted. And, every now and then I would have a moment where I would pick up the phone to call my mother, and I'm like, oh, right, she's not there.
You have the white picket fence, palm trees slinging in the air, and clouds that are so close to the earth you can almost touch them. They just sit up there living their best life, bro. Clouds got the best job.
You ever think the clouds get depressed living their best life?
Of course. How else would you explain the rain?
I would pick up the phone to call my mother, and I'm like, oh, right, she's not there. Or I would automatically drive to CVS, because I was so used to picking up her medicine and prescriptions. And then I'm like, oh, that's right, I don't have any more medicine to pick up. So I had some of those moments where I was so used to being in a routine of doing things, and then I didn't have it. It stopped, and I'm like, oh, man. So, I decided that I was going to get back active in my sorority, because I was like, I need something to fill this void. And to be honest, I don't know why I didn't seek counseling, like grief counseling, because before, when I was taking care of my mom when she was sick, I did go to counseling because it was very stressful. But this time I didn't do it, because I was like, it's still not going to bring my mommy back. And I was like, there's no need, I just have to pray and pray my way through. So for 2 years I did that, until my daughter, my oldest daughter, passed away. And that, talk about somebody's world shattering. Like, I'll never forget it. It was September 6, 2018. And I was at work, you know, and I got a phone call from a Miami, Florida number. And anybody knows me knows that if I don't recognize the number, I'm not going to answer it. So I let it go to voicemail, and they left a voicemail message. And it was a detective from the Hialeah police department. And they were like, yes, this message is for Tiffany Stepney. Please contact detective blah, 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 you know, when you can. Immediately my heart stopped because I knew that my daughter was down there. She was spending the summer with some friends, and then in the fall she was going to go back to grad school in New York. But I knew she was spending the summer there, so my heart just dropped because the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, you know, my daughter is locked up in jail. And so when I called the detective back, I wish she was in jail because they told me that they found her body at a construction site. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, they found her at a construction site, and she didn't have any ID or anything on her. All she had was her cell phone. And the way we was able to get your information is because we saw, I guess you bought a ticket or something on Ticketmaster, and it had your name on it. So that's how we were able to look you up. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I lost it at work. You know, a coworker had to drive me home. That was a blur. Then, you know, I told my other daughters, and, you know, my other daughter, my middle daughter, she was like, you're playing, right? And I'm like, no, they said that they did that. I said, we got to get to Florida. I was like, I don't know how, because I didn't have any money. But the people, like the partner that I worked for, him and some other partners, they put together their points, their flight points. They put us on a plane. We got down there. I had to ID her body because I was still in denial. I was like, please don't let it be her, you know, like let it be somebody else. Like, not that I wanted to be somebody else, but you know what I meant? Like, let this not be true. But when they pulled back the sheets and I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, I lost it again, because I was like, it's really happening. And, you know, the way my mind, like, I don't know if anybody else has this happen, but like, I can experience two different things at the same time, like grief, but then autopilot mode, and it kicked in. It was like, I'm grieving because I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is happening. But at the same time, I'm like, I got to get her back home. So I'm talking to the funeral director in Florida as to how they can ship her back home so we can do everything. And to this day, I really don't know what happened with her. All I know, and the only thing I have to go on, is she had taken a lift and something went wrong with the lift ride. And she contacted customer service or whatever, and they were looking into it. That's the only thing I have to go by. This last ride that was like at 3 a.m. And if I had money, I would have launched a private investigation to figure out exactly what happened, but nobody was trying to talk. Lyft wouldn't talk. You know, the detective, he was like, it's an open and shut case. And I'm like, how is it when there's questions?
I'm going to be one of the greatest rappers of all time.
Okay. Well, as long as that's what you want, then you go for it.
You know what? I am about to drop some new music and shit, man. When I drop this shit, I need you to post that shit, get your boy some clout out there in these streets, man.
Believe it or not, bro, I think I can do you one better.
New, meet up with this producer, and he gonna sign us for real.
But it's important for you to spend time with Hydra this weekend, especially after how hard you were on him this morning. So, take him with you.
You ready to head out to the Lou baby boy? I'm gonna give you my phone, put some games and talk me back, alright?
Joe! Yo, but where's Hydra? We probably should call the police.
No, we can't call the police, man. We just can't call the police. Me being a black man in America.
Nigga, I'm black too.
I just need $5,000.
Now, you know you have to notify somebody when you lose a child. Does Rose know?
No, don't tell her nothing.
You need me, I don't need to say I
lost your kid in St. Louis, you don't have the phone. You need all the help you can get, man. You have the white picket fence, palm trees slinging in the air, and clouds that are so close to the earth you can almost touch them. They just sit up there living their best life, bro. Clouds got the best job.
You ever think the clouds get depressed living their best life?
Of course. How else would you explain the rain?
So, that's the only thing I had to go on. So, the detective, he talked to me because I asked questions. I was like, well, why didn't you talk to Lyft? And they were like, well, they said they'll talk if we issued a warrant. And at this point, we're not suspecting the Lyft driver. And I'm like, well, I'm not accusing him. I said, I just wanted to know, like, what happened? Why was she unsatisfied with the ride to the point where she contacted customer service? Like, what happened? So, so that was where we left it, the conversation with the detective. So I made arrangements to get her body back to DC. And, it was all a blur. We planned the funeral and everything. Because she went to University of Maryland College Park, and shout out to everyone that I interacted with at UMD because they were so supportive. Apparently my daughter was very active in the community. Anything like for inequality, she fought against inequalities, and she actually was doing research on systemic inequalities. And she was going to grad school in New York at CUNY, New York, and like one of the grad schools in the program, because she was like an activist. She wanted equality for all people of color and marginalized people. So they remembered her from her undergraduate days, and so they gave me the chapel for free. They had people, they gave us a place to have the repast at one of the community centers. My sorority, my chapter, they took care of the repast. Like, I'm telling you, I'm so grateful for them, for everybody, because it's still a blur to me. Like, I just know things was happening left and right, and I was just there, like, in a whirlwind, because again, 2 years prior, I lost my mom. So, and I had gotten to a point 2 years after my mom passed that I was like, okay, I can breathe again. And then bam, I got gut punched, and it's like, wow. So, they were helpful. My friends, two of my good girlfriends, they flew with me to Florida to pack up her room. They got me back. Everybody was so helpful, and I'm still grateful to them. And at the day of the funeral, the chapel was filled with people whose lives my daughter touched. Like, it was standing room only at the funeral, and I didn't know it. And so for anybody that's watching that was there, I appreciate you, because that day, I'm going to really say, is when I saw God's face in that day, in that moment, because people from all walks of life, orientation, everything, they were all there because my daughter had touched their lives in some way or another. Like, people from her elementary school all the way up to college. And it was phenomenal. Like, I didn't realize how much people really loved and cared for my daughter. And that warmed my heart, because it made me feel like, I raised her the best that I could. And, and it was a good thing. It was a positive thing that, she made an impact on people's lives like that. So it really touched me. I just wish that she was still here to see all of that. And I know she did, because she's like, she definitely, that's what she wanted. So, but, I'm not going to lie, even though everyone was so helpful and things like that, the fact still remained that I lost my firstborn and my mom. And those two people were very impactful in my life. So my 2 heartbeats were gone. I still had, 2 more heartbeats at home that I had to live for. But the way my head was at, it was not, I didn't think I could go on. Like, I remember looking up in the sky and saying, Lord, please just take me now because I can't handle this. And I would think of ways in which, not that I wanted to do harm to myself per se, but I wanted something to, like, for instance, I would be driving in the car and I would be like, I wish somebody would just hit me, put me out, or, send me to the hospital or something. Like, that's where my head was at, because I was hurting so bad and I didn't want that hurt anymore. And then here I am, I'm trying to be strong for my other 2 daughters, and they're looking at me and I'm like, I had all this pressure on me to be strong, and inside I was dying. And it's like, everybody was like, oh, you're so strong, you're so strong. And I'm like, I'm glad you see it because I don't, and it's like, and those were my moments when I really grew closer to God, because I didn't have anything else to rely on. My mother was gone. That's who I used to go to, and I didn't want to talk to anybody else because I didn't think that they would understand, because most of my friends, they didn't lose a child before. I do have one girlfriend that, had miscarriages and things like that, and she could relate. But again, I didn't want to burden her with my, with my stuff, because I didn't know if that was going to trigger her or anything like that. So I kept a lot of it to myself. And I did. I went to grief counseling and I talked about it. And I'm not going to say it did not work, but at the time, all I know is that I didn't have my 2 heartbeats and I wanted them there. And yes, I can talk about it. And even now as I talk about it, it's therapy for me. But at the time, it was like, what am I going to do?
You have the white picket fence, palm trees slinging in the air, and clouds that are so close to the earth you can almost touch them. They just sit up there living their best life, bro. Clouds got the best job.
You ever think the clouds get depressed living their best life?
Of course. How else would you explain the rain?
So, as I'm, going through the grief counseling and things like that, one of the things that I did take away from it was journaling. And it ties into what one of my cousins said to me, my cousin's husband. He saw me and he grabbed me and he hugged me and he says, God told me to tell you that it's not your fault. And
it's okay. Take your time.
And he was right, because, I blamed myself, because I was like, if I had done this, maybe she would still be here. Or if I had insisted that she didn't go to Florida, maybe she would still be here. So I did blame myself. And for him to tell me that, it gave me the relief I needed, because I was blaming myself for it. And I wanted to change it and I couldn't. And so he, when he said that, God told him to tell me that it's not my fault, it gave me the courage to kind of like, forgive myself, because I had to forgive myself. And then journaling, it helped me a lot, because I'm so hard on myself. And when that happened, people are looking at me, and I'm not even going to name names, but someone actually did blame me for my daughter's death, because they're like, well, if you had, made her do this, or if you insisted that then this would have never happened, so it's your fault. And I internalized that, even though I tried to like argue against it, you know, deep down inside, I was feeling the same way. I was like, if I had done this, or if I had insisted that she come back to DC instead of going to Florida, this wouldn't have happened. So when he told me that, that was like a turning point in turning, you know, my grief into like a healing, because with that and what my therapist said about journaling, I was able to write a letter to myself. I wrote a letter to my daughter, and you know, I reread it, and you know, I started talking about some of the memories that we had, like the fun times we had. And you know, now when some songs come on, I'm like, wow, this was her favorite song. Or you know, we would always, any song, I don't care what song it was on the radio, we would always harmonize. So when a song would come on, I would smile and I would be like, you take the low part, I got the high part, you know, that kind of thing. And so in doing the journaling and writing about memories and things like that, it helped me to kind of
You know what they say about watching horror films on Halloween. But these films could be a gateway to the other side.
Is this another one of your superstitions?
I'm going to be one of the greatest rappers of all time.
Okay. Well, as long as that's what you want, then you go for it.
You know what? I am about to drop some new music and shit, man. When I drop this shit, I need you to post that shit and get your boy some clout out there in these streets, man.
Believe it or not, bro, I think I can do you one better.
Lou, meet up with this producer. He gonna sign us for real, for real.
But it's important for you to spend time with Hydra this weekend, especially after how hard you were on him this morning. So, take him with you.
You ready to head out to the Lou, baby boy? Give you my phone. Put some games and talk back, all right?
Joe! Yo, but where's Hydra? We probably should call the police.
No, we can't call the police, man. We just can't call the police. Me being a black man in America.
Nigga, I'm black too.
I just need $5,000.
Now, you know you have to notify somebody when you lose a child. Does Rose know?
No, don't tell her nothing.
You don't need to say out loud.
God! You know, you lost your kid in St. Louis. You don't have a phone. You need all the help you can get, man.
Embrace, you know, that even though she's physically gone, she's always in my heart. And, you know, I know that, you know, again, as I've said many, many times before, things happen for a reason. God allows things to happen for a reason. In the beginning, I didn't understand why God allowed me to go through this. But as time went on, I realized that it's to, you know, show how you can get beauty from ashes. You know, you can have joy in a time of sorrow. You know, who could ever imagine that out of something so painful that something beautiful could arise from it? So, you know, with that, you know, I cherish the good moments. I don't dwell on, you know, negativity. I'm kinder to myself. I forgive myself, you know, and, you know, I know that, you know, through your strength and courage, and therapy doesn't hurt either. You know, there's a lot of people, especially in our community, you know, they kind of frown at therapy, but it is nothing wrong with that, because therapy is talking to someone in a safe space. You know, there's no judgment. You don't have to worry about anyone talking about you behind your back or anything like that. You can be your true self, talk about your feelings. A lot of times, you know, it's taboo to talk about your feelings. And, you know, that is definitely something that's helped me, is to just talk about my feelings, put it out there on the table so I can examine it, so I can understand, why am I feeling like this, you know, and what do I need to do to overcome that thing that's bothering me or holding me down. So so with all that being said, you know, and I'm not saying it's an easy fix. It's not an overnight thing. It's still a process. You know, I have my moments. There are times like, you know, I think about, you know, oh, I wish my baby was here. She could see this or whatever. But it's a good, endearing moment, you know. So it's not a sad moment. It's an endearing moment, and it's a process. And to be honest, you know, that old Tiffany is gone. It's never going to be back the way it was, but it's just a modified version of me. And, you know, I know how to take the good and the bad and, you know, just put it all together and just look at the good in all of it. And just, again, knowing that everything happens for a reason. And above all, I trust God's plan in my life. And I know that He would never take me anywhere that I'm not supposed to be. And He would never put more on me than I can bear. So thank you for watching. And I hope this helps you as much as it helped me.
There's a time to work, there's a time to play, time to sit and do nothing all day, time where you think you'll never get your way, then there's time where you'll always get paid.